What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians, runners? Oh, wait. We're not doing runners today. We're just doing guardians, but feel free to stick around. Joker back again. You know the spiel. And today we are talking about the Edge of Fate. Or should I say the Edge of Nothing? Because, ooh boy, times two. Oh, you know what my favorite thing is? When Bungie management says, we're listening. Because you know you're in for a shit show. I mean, who are they listening to? What are they listening for? Is it just the sound of the clock ticking time away until their stock vests in 2026? Is that what they're doing? Well, when we look at what Bungie has the audacity to charge $40 for and call a DLC, what do we see? Well, progression is dead. Build crafting stripped down and anemic, pigeonholing players into using exactly what Bungie wants you to use far more than Champions ever did. Why? Because, well, when players have a sandbox to use, Bungie can't actually develop content around it. And mind you, that's the best case scenario. The more likely scenario is that Bungie's just arbitrarily limiting what you can use because that's the only way they know how to make content. Yay. Your exotics? Shards, because Bungie has taken them out back and... From what I'm hearing, going into Edge of Fate, your current exotics will all be rebalanced to tier 2 armor pieces under the new stat armor system, which is in concert with Bungie's plan to curate which exotics play into the new system every 6 months. In fact, it's highly likely that unless you use something super niche, all your favorite things, perks, classes, aspects, fragments, have been nerfed harder than Bungie's morale after a marathon reveal.
Walk out the door, you see someone that you know, and they ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
I said it before, I'll say it again. I'm not particularly sure why they would broadcast someone's humiliation kink on main, but here we are. Season passes? Well, they're now basically pay to win. And Edge of Fate, or as I've been calling it, Edge of Nothing, the bold new beginning of a thrilling new saga, well, maybe, just maybe, we should adjust our expectations about this new golden age we find ourselves in. According to Gigs on Twitter, we're only getting 1 raid this year, down from 2. We're only getting 1 dungeon this year, down from 2. Seasonal content, who knows how that's going to play out. There are no strikes, at least not in this expansion. No PvP modes, no PvP maps, no new subclasses, but hey, Pete Parsons' classic Camaro. I remember when they said the DLC would be the size of Rise of Iron.
The way we're kind of looking at the size of these is similar to like Rise of Iron from Destiny 1, but this is happening like twice a year.
So that was a fucking lie.
So when we talk about this being Rise of Iron size, what exactly do we mean? Do we mean 2 to 4 exotic missions depending on how you want to split it? No? Huh. How about 7 new exotic armor pieces? Nope. Just the 3. Okay. What about 7 exotic weapons? 5 new, 2 old? No. How about new strikes? No. No new strikes. Okay. Are you doing anything with the current strikes in the game to maybe reprise them, freshen them up? No. And the new weapon system isn't retroactive, so old raid loot won't be, and old dungeon loot won't be, okay. Okay. How about new PvP modes? No. PvP maps? No. So, pardon my ignorance, but what exactly makes this the size of Rise of Iron again? And what a great foundation this is to set the tone for the next, I don't know, 2 years, if I'm being optimistic. But hey, it does feature an homage to Metroid Prime and a copy paste from Warframe. You didn't think we'd notice.
It's you.
You're gonna get a call. An invitation only you can answer.
My champion. Please, drown out that noise that beckons. If any other answers the call. No, it has to be you.
I guess when you're as creatively bankrupt as Bungie, your only options are to either A, hire better talent, or plagiarize. I mean, take inspiration from other people's work. It could be worse. They could do a branded deal with another floundering IP. Oh, right. On top of all of that, your gear is getting, well, actually, your gear's technically not getting sunset. It's actually worse. Your gear will be kinda sort of soft sunset every 6 months. Yeah. For all intents and purposes, going into Edge of Nothing, you are being asked to pay $40 for less content than Curse of Osiris. Curse of fucking Osiris. This isn't a DLC. This is a highway robbery with patch notes, a mugging with Destiny slapped on it. But I do guess that's kind of thematic. After all, we keep seeing Chicago in the marketing. And before the Bungie blown out backside brigade comes crawling into my comment section, all hyped up on copium and Stockholm Syndrome screeching, "But Joker, none of that matters. 100 more years of Destiny. I'll take what I can get. Also, games are more expensive." Well, this is true. Everything is more expensive. If game companies are going to raise their prices, then shouldn't our expectations raise as well? After all, prices are going up, so customer buying power is going down. Ergo, we should be more critical when it comes to the quality of the things that we buy. That seems both fairly reasonable and responsible to me. But that inevitably means more people won't buy things. So is it any gasp, shock, or horror, or wonder, or mystery that the pre-order numbers for Destiny, the Edge of Fate, and the entire next year of Destiny have dropped comparatively to Final Shape and Lightfall, faster than Cade 6 after a 44 compromise?
Am I strong enough to let things just die?
Does this really shock anyone? And pre-order numbers are often the canary in the coal mine for sales. So when pre-order numbers go down, well, you know how that goes.
Do the thing.
I don't know what's sadder, the state of the game or the fanboys vehemently defending paying more for less, because that's absolutely what we're doing here. And while an argument can be made about paying more for quality, even though it is less, historically speaking, quality has never been Destiny's strongest suit. This isn't a 3-star Michelin meal that we're talking about. This is a leftover Big Mac. And I kind of feel like I'm insulting the Big Mac here because at least the Big Mac has flavor. I mean, after all, how many people just watching this video said they're done after Final Shape? Or how many people are just kind of sitting waiting to see how good Edge of Fate is until they pre-order? Hell, I play this game for money and I still haven't pre-ordered Edge of Fate because I'm kind of like, do I really? Maybe I can just cover current gaming events. Yeah, you might have noticed we moved away from the Red Titan and we have all of this now going on. It's a work in progress. Very, very progress. But I digress. Like I was saying, how many people are just kind of sort of waiting to see if Edge of Fate is even worth your money? And speaking of waiting and seeing, if I was Bungie, more so after the slow motion car crash, train wreck, whatever you want to call it, that has been Marathon, I would be bringing out the big guns for Edge of Fate. Because Bungie absolutely needs a PR win. So, where are they? This isn't it. Is it? Because, yikes. Look, I'm not saying, I'm just saying it's weird that Bungie is obfuscating so much of Edge of Fate when they really, really need a PR win. Of course, that is likely me being far too generous because obfuscation means there's something to obfuscate. Yeah, yikes. ×2. Anything after Final Shape was going to be a hard sell unless it was literally Destiny 3 with a note slapped to the front of it going, "We're sorry, please take us back. This is the best game you'll ever play, we promise." And even then, it probably still wouldn't be a day one buy for a lot of jaded fans. However, that's not what we got. Now, it doesn't take an eagle-eyed viewer, hell, it doesn't take a functioning optic nerve to notice that Bungie has been heavily focusing on quality of life updates, coming with Edge of Nothing. And to their credit, some of these actually do look useful eventually, maybe once they get the kinks worked out. The biggest kink being an arbitrary artifact power system that forces you to grind out new gear every 6 months. If you hated Sunsetting 1, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages, you are really, really going to hate Sunsetting 2, Electra Boogaloo, because I'm sure resetting every 6 months is going to be a non-starter for a lot of people. Editing Joker back again once again with a little bit of an addendum. So, some big Destiny brains over on the Twatternet did some math. Quoting here, I did some math about the upcoming power grind in Edge of Fate. To go from 200 to 400 power needed to earn tier 5 loot, and assuming you get +3 drops in the correct slot every time, and you get a drop every 10 minutes, it'll take 90 hours of time. Get ready to grind! So 90 plus hours to get to the cap. That's not including best in slot. That's just getting to the cap, and you'll probably have to redo that grind every 3 to 6 months. Wow! Way to respect player time. I'm gonna remind everybody once again, leveling is not content. Now, I said leveling is not content over on the Twitternet, and some people took offense to that. One person took particular offense to it. Dyed in the wool, true believer Destiny fanboys are not beating the allegations, now are they? But let me go ahead and clarify what I mean by leveling is not content. While there are, of course, exceptions to these rules, generally speaking, leveling is a treadmill. It's a treadmill designed to gate you from content, not be content. Most times it's just the illusion of substance, bland, repetitive. The actual content is the game, the missions, the dungeons, the story, the bosses, the stuff that you would still care about if there were no number to go burr. I'll give an example, a level 1 to 10 tutorial to teach you how to play the game. The content isn't the levels. The content is the things that you do in the tutorial, the mechanics you learn, the enemies you fight, the world you begin to explore. If you remove the 1 to 10 level gate, but kept the encounters, the mechanics, and the story, you would still have a game. But if you remove that and you just kept a progress bar that goes up, well, guess what? You don't have a game. This, I feel like, should be pretty self-explanatory. 99.999% of the time, levels are a stall tactic, a placebo. It doesn't enrich the experience, it pads it out. Replay the same content that you've been playing for nearly a decade for 90 plus hours, and maybe, just maybe, there'll be a carrot at the end of the stick. Oh yeah, and you get to do it all over again in 3 to 6 months. And they have the audacity to call that content? That's not content, that's an unfettered addiction. While I always advocate for more hardcore content in the game, I've always acknowledged that Destiny, more so because of Bungie, has catered to a casual audience, forcing people to re-gear every 6 months, while also rotating in and out a list of curated exotics, serves neither side of this player base. It doesn't serve the hardcore, it doesn't serve the casual. They're not going to like to lose everything already, and they're sure as shit not going to be okay with doing it every 6 months. More so once you've given them an offboarding point with a bookend to the franchise. Even if, in my opinion, the way stats are going to work now, combined with set bonuses, is a worthy trade-off to losing all the current gear we have, it's not a worthy trade-off to lose the gear that we have now, and then lose the gear that we get again in 6 months. This doesn't serve your hardcore players either, because it actively interferes with and upsets build crafting. It can take a long time to get a perfectly statted piece of armor. Months even. And now you're going to have to do that every 6 months just so you can get into the content that you want to play? Yeah. That seems like a real winning formula for player engagement, Bungie. What are we doing here? There's literally scenarios actively being talked about right now where god rolls and best in slot class builds will be a detriment from season to season compared with mid-tier loot that comes out in the new season. So, for example, what do I mean? Well, in Edge of Fate, if you just so happen to get all your really cool god tier items in the first 6 months, well, then come next DLC, you arbitrarily lose all that progress. So all your god rolls are now weaker fundamentally than the new mid-tier gear because they no longer get a power bonus from being new. Why would Bungie do this? Well, if I had to guess, player engagement. I think they're looking at systems in other MMOs and trying to implement them into Destiny, but they either don't understand why those systems are in other MMOs or they're implementing them half-baked. From what I'm hearing, and I could be mistaken, so take this with a grain of salt, I couldn't find a source on this, but it sounds like exotics, for example, won't have tier 4 or 5 versions when they're released. So the system's not finished. In other MMOs like Final Fantasy XIV, each patch, so 7.0, 7.1, 7.15, 7.2, 7.25, comes with gear updates. Now, while the gearing system in Final Fantasy XIV has its own issues,
you know what's really fucking cringe, man, is the fact that the 24-man gear is not 660. this should give you raid equivalent gear. Because at this point in the patch cycle, it doesn't matter. For those of you that have raided, it's already hard enough to get gear. Even if you're in a fucking static, it's hard enough to get gear because the gearing in this game is so slow. How many jobs are in the game? There's 18, 20 jobs. This game is supposed to promote playing different jobs. This game discourages you to play different jobs. Like the 24-man should be raid equivalent. You can only get one piece a week. What does it matter, man? When the 24-man comes out, the raid tier has already been out for like 3.5 months. Who cares? Just make it raid equivalent. It's supposed to help the people catch up. I don't think they're talking about the tome cap here. I don't think they're talking about the fact that it takes 8 books to get a fucking weapon. I don't think that Yoshi P is admitting to the major problems with the game. Final Fantasy XIV has the most dog shit rewards of any game I've ever played in my fucking life. The most dog shit fucking rewards. A vast majority of this content is you fucking do it once, you get some shitty ass fucking reward, and there is no reason to ever do that shit again.
The general gearing for one class is pretty straightforward. You get your tomestones, a currency you get in the game by playing ritual activities in the game, you trade those in for loot, or you level a crafter, or you spend a ludicrous amount of gil each patch to buy gear from the marketplace, or you join a guild or static. I'm overcomplicating it. So while the system's clearly not perfect, there's no RNG and very little guesswork. It's very point A to point B to point C. You know what you're getting, how you get it, and why you want it. Destiny, however, isn't that kind of game. It's very reliant on RNG grinds to keep people engaged with knocking out their chores because whether you like it or not, the RNG grind is the game. Long past when content has dried up or you're bored of doing this, that, and the other, there's always looking to the future. What do I need for the future, for the next raid, for the next dungeon, for PvP? But if you take away the feeling of being able to progress towards something and replace it with artificial metas, more artificial grinds, if everything you do is going to reset in 6 months and there's no huge reason for it, then why would anyone try? Why would anyone bother? Now again, I think the initial reset is fine. They're the growing pains of adapting to the new system. It's a fair price to pay, even if it sucks. And it does suck. But if it was one and done, you bite the bullet and you get on with it. Doing this every 6 months and there's no real upside to it, well, what's the point? The other argument that I hear a lot is the reason that Edge of Fate and the next year of Destiny content aren't doing so hot in the pre-orders is because, well, Final Shape was the end of a 10-year saga. People are done. They've moved on. But is that really the case? I mean, after all, if the game was good, wouldn't people want to keep playing the game? In fact, we have precedent of this very situation.
That which lives is destined to die. Love leads to loss. Every beginning has an end.
Now, normally, this is where I'd get into an overly long tangent about the similarities between Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker and Final Shape. It was 800 words and I cut it for time. But here's the TLDR, Endwalker was the end of a 10-year saga. And it was a mixed bag for a DLC. There was a lot of tedium with gut-wrenching emotional beats interspersed between more tedium. Depending on your tolerance for emotional manipulation by music, you may enjoy it, you may not enjoy it. The post-launch support for Endwalker was, at least when you compare it to all the other DLCs, abysmal. It's arguably the weakest in the franchise. Now, for those of you who are wondering why this comparison's relevant, Endwalker was so successful that Square Enix had to stop selling the game. Final Shape could not even imagine that. Literally, they had to pull the game from digital storefronts for months. They had to shut down the free trial. The servers were melting. People were getting into queue just so they could get kicked out of queue so they could go back into queue. It was madness. Dawntrail, the most recent Final Fantasy DLC and the start of the new whatever, was just as popular as Endwalker, maybe even slightly more depending on how you want to split it at time of release. Warframe, from what I've been told, also ended a 10-year saga with Ballas and the Sentient and New War. And at the time, it was advertised as the end of a saga, with the Angels of Zimmerman kicking off the Edelbracht saga around Entradi and the Man in the Wall. Someone go check how consistent these player numbers have been. Aye aye, Captain, right away. Basically, if you look at the numbers, Warframe really hasn't dipped below between 40 and 50,000 players daily since 2017. Destiny wishes it could have that many players daily, despite having over double its all-time peak. Kinda sad. So this idea that Final Shape was the end of a 10-year saga, so of course people are going to be turned off of Edge of Fate, just doesn't hold water. Other franchises have successfully transitioned from one saga to the next without significant loss of players, at least at the start. But hey, at least it's not World of Warcraft. I was told that game was getting better.
No! Do not make her a martyr.
Destiny has spent more time in the holding pattern of potentially good than actually being good. And we can see that this isn't a Destiny problem. This isn't a complications of developing Destiny content over years and years and years and years. It's a Bungie problem. Because this mentality isn't just in Destiny, it's in Marathon. The biggest issue with Destiny and the biggest issue with Marathon is that Bungie doesn't believe that they can do anything wrong. They're high on their own supply. I mean, after all, they thought that a niche game with a niche art style in a niche genre was going to make top 5 MPD in the same year as the Switch 2, all of those games, and Grand Theft Auto 6. So this speaks to a level of delusional optimism that shows Bungie is in abject denial of reality. But I digress. Where was I? If you have been following the Edge of Fate coverage, you'll notice that Bungie is laser focused on quality of life improvements. And historically, that has always been an early warning sign. Whenever Bungie starts talking up UI tweaks, menu changes, inventory changes, accessibility changes, or how they're throwing all your gear in the trash, it's usually because they don't have much content to show. If they're only, yeah, all these quality of life changes are great, wonderful, amazing. Oh, here's the same strike I've played 3,892 times. Yay! As it stands, based on what Bungie has advertised, it really doesn't seem like they're adding much to the game. They're just kind of reorganizing all the leftovers and, calling it a day. Personally, I've seen some people argue that this is okay because this will be the foundation of the franchise going forward. And you know what? Hey, cool, neat. The free update that Bungie is going to have to do to continue making Destiny looks nice. Doesn't justify a $40 DLC, and that might sound harsh, but given the historical mismanagement of Bungie Studio resources, mismanagement of resources that Sony's CEO has commented on, it's also accurate. But Joker me all you want, it is what it is. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's not my job to care how the game is made, just that it's made and provides value. However, if the trends that Bungie are showing continues, Bungie's creativity isn't the only thing that's going to be bankrupt. Okay, it's a little more complicated than that. Sony owns Bungie, so technically speaking, bankruptcy isn't in the cards, but more mass layoffs to meet projection goals absolutely are. And for what? For what? Marathon? Get the fuck out of here with that shit. You don't need a crystal ball to see how this plays out. Lightfall and Final Shape had some of the highest player counts in the franchise's history, and both Lightfall and Final Shape saw mass layoffs. Why? Because the player numbers after the DLC fell off a cliff. Because Bungie's real moneymaker isn't the DLCs themselves, it's the microtransactions that people who are staying around and playing the DLC purchase. Bungie could have 2 insanely well-selling DLCs, historically speaking, and still have to lay off hundreds of people. Well, now you know. A lean DLC sold at $40 isn't going to change this calculation, by the way. In fact, it will expedite things. I'd almost argue it was knowingly self-sabotage or self-destructive, but Bungie was blinded by Marathon and the reaction to Marathon. So malicious incompetence seems to be the best case scenario here. But let's go ahead and put that $40 price tag more into perspective. When Bungie announced going forward what DLCs would look like, they said they'd be around the size of Rise of Iron.
The way we're kind of looking at the size of these is similar to like Rise of Iron from Destiny 1, but this is happening like twice a year.
So that was a fucking lie.
Personally speaking, I've said many times that I don't think Bungie quite remembers how large Rise of Iron was. As a reminder, Edge of Fate for $40 is what? One story, one exotic mission, one new destination location, one new destination activity, a raid. That's it. I don't think I need to tell you, but this is way less content than Rise of Iron had for $30. For starters, Rise of Iron had strikes, quite a few PvP maps, a new location, a new social hub, a new destination activity. But you know what? Destiny is also an MMORPG, or at least Bungie keeps saying it is. And so while it would be fair for me to sit here and itemize comparatively everything that comes in a $40 to $50 Final Fantasy XIV DLC, you know, like all the previous expansions, which puts it way ahead of any Destiny 2 DLC, because what's Destiny 2's buy-in at this point again? $150, $200, $300 for everything? That's ridiculous. That's absurd. I think a fairer, much more kid gloves comparison is Destiny 2 Edge of Fate to, I don't know, Final Fantasy XIV's free 7.2 update, which gave us an MSQ questline, which can run anywhere between 3 to 5 hours, depending on how you play. The Hildebrand questline, which is a full cinematic questline, depending on your taste for slapstick comedy. It's either the highlight of the DLC or an annoyance that you just don't touch. The Relic questline, which gives relic weapons for all 20 battle classes and the crafting classes. 2 raids, the normal raid series and its Savage tier, which is a harder difficulty version of the raid, and the Forked Tower, which is a 42-player raid that happens in the Occult Crescent, which is the new location battle area. We'll talk about that in a moment. There's 1 new trial, 1 new dungeon, and 2 new locations. The crafting location on the moon and Occult Crescent, which houses what's called field operations. Field operations are a bunch of dungeon or raid-like bosses that are just kind of out in the world, and you go and you fight them with large groups of people. Pretty cool. It's kind of more like the boss rush Bungie was playing with, but in a public event setting. Oh yeah, and most of this content has quest lines and storylines that take hours to complete. Now, I could go on and on and on and on, bullet pointing more stuff that's been added for like crafters and different quest lines like that, but I honestly don't think Destiny players would have a point of reference in Destiny for it, because this sort of content doesn't exist in Destiny. Now, you as a Destiny player may be listening to this itemization of free content, or if you want to be particularly anal retentive about it, $12 to $15 sub fee content, and think, wow, some gaming communities drowned while others die of thirst. But this content cycle has been considered lacking and formulaic by the Final Fantasy XIV community. Yeah, as a Destiny player, it is kind of funny watching Final Fantasy XIV players bitch about how their steak is too juicy and their lobster too buttery. But you know what? It's fair, because they're right. But that's a topic for another video. In fact, plenty of games offer more content than Destiny for either a better price or as part of the service of keeping players engaged with the game. Gas, shock, horror, lightning, crackle, we all know this. So let me ask the obvious question. If we take this 50% less pre-orders at face value, is it really any wonder why players are looking at the bookend of Destiny 2's story with the end of Final Shape, and then they're presented with a DLC with less content than Curse of Osiris for double the price? And they're just going, this is a real tough one. A real noggin jogger. Maybe I'll sit this DLC out. I know I asked this earlier, but how many of you saw Final Shape as a good place to stop, and you're looking at Edge of Fate going, yep, yeah, I made the correct choice, the objectively correct choice. Without a categorical recalibration of priorities within the studio, without a customer-first mindset over a minimally viable product mindset, there is no way forward. Games are not a train station that need to run on time or on schedules. They're amusement parks. And when you run out of amusements, or you start closing down attractions, or you stagnate, is it any wonder why people stop coming to see you? You can only blame yourself at that point for failing to razzle-dazzle your audience. If Bungie's goal is ultimately to be profitable, and they're a business, so there's no reason that they don't want to be profitable, then they have to give players a reason to spend money. And no, RGB generic armor 3,552 in the cash shop isn't cutting it. $40 for $10 worth of content isn't cutting it. Give players a reason to get lost in your game, and they will feel so grateful they'll spend money. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Remember to like, but only if you did. Subscribe for more. Feel free to donate to my Patreon if you're feeling particularly generous. And above all else, stay frosty.